I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Tonight's budget for the health, housing, public safety, and social services. Meeting begins at 7:31. My name is Charlie Trombett. I'll be the chair. Also, Jack Knapp, Louise McMahon, John Esposito, and Paul Rotell are committee members. We have David St. Hilaire, Director of Finance, Dan Garrick, Assistant Director of Finance, Wayne Shepard, Chief of Staff, Scott Leroy, Chief Baker, and Chief Harrell. Okay. And let's see, we have Ben Chinisi, Dwayne Perkins, Colleen Stanley, Fred Visconti, Dwayne Perkins, Jane Diggs, Joe Cabo, Mary Teisel, Greg Seabury, and Warren Levy, all here ex officio. How's that? All right, I'd like to pass this on to David so we can go over the line.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. I'm going to start off with the police department.
Code.
Right.
Just in the building. Code.
Yeah. Page 123, 124. And hopefully you had a chance to see the new police department. It's a beautiful building. It really is. Yes. Chief here?
Right here.
Sorry, Chief.
Thank you for coming down today.
Beautiful building.
Thank you.
It really is. It's impressive. You know, I haven't been down there but until today, and I'm glad I didn't because very impressive. I think it would have taken something away if I'd stopped down any time before. It was really ready. Money well spent. Okay. I worked very closely with the chief and Terry and his crew, you know, their crew to put together an extremely tight budget. And I kid you not when I say that their efforts to make this work are really incredible. As you notice from their amended budget, they're only slightly above that by $200,000, which is a little bit less than last year's actuals. Now, how they accomplish that? Well, their overtime, they're going to contain that. You know, their overtime has leveled off. This year we're going to be right about on mark. You know, we still have a couple months to go in this move. Some of those costs that are going to be incurred by the move are still project-related costs, not subject to operational per se, unless in case they're truly operational. But a lot of it may be capital expenditures. We'll have to separate those. But as you look through the budget, one thing, as I mentioned in the previous meeting, last year we made a significant change in special services. We no longer are budgeting for special services in revenue and expenditures. And that's important to note because in the past we used to budget a rather high number in our expense side and sort of a corresponding number on our revenue side. And in essence what it did, it inflated both sides. Because in the end, what it was supposed to do was wash itself out. Because basically what it is, it's a reimbursement for services that are provided outside. The services are provided to for you know vendors and other people, outside groups that need police services, are required to have police services. So they contract with our policemen and reimburse us for that. Now we do charge a little extra for that services, an administrative fee, and if they when they use our vehicles, they also get charged an additional charge for that as well. And this year they are, and part of that process is they have to go out and get reimbursed, and they're they're current. There's some places lag a typical 30 days or 60 days, and there's some that are lagging more than that. But right now, Chief, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, you're fairly well caught up on that. You know, if we were to look at a 60-day cycle and some of the CLMPs or refuse utilities, they do typically lag 45 to 60 days, which is a normal cycle. At year end, they will actually be in the black, which means they're going to show a negative number on their expenditure side, which is a good thing. And when the numbers are all said and done at the end of this year, if they happen to show that, then and our overall numbers look good at the end of the year, then I will try to earmark that for some training. And that was the agreement that the chief and I, both chiefs and I, we kind of agreed to last year. If they make that extra effort to be aggressive in their collection, that we would kind of earmark some of that for training, if we have the money and we're able to afford to do that. Say yes. This year it's tight, so we'll see how it goes. All right. Any questions on this? You notice a big change in the vehicles. Again, their vehicle replacement program has been stretched out. I asked the chief to do that, and he has done that. They're not abandoning their replacement program. They are simply stretching it out over a longer period of time. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Through the chair, Mr. Sinclair, just to follow up on the question that you just mentioned, or not question, but what you just said, as far as stretching the vehicles out over time, is what line item is that for the purchase of vehicles on an ongoing basis?
That is your.
Is that automotive equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's related, which is going to be your. Public safety equipment to outfit that, chief, is your public safety equipment line, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could just ask two questions, and I guess it would be directed to the chief. Could you explain to me, Chief, the special duty police? We dropped considerably, and that's admirable, but what is their position?
That's the special police officers. We're going to reduce the time we employ them. Right now they work Fridays, Saturdays, and some special events. Seasonally, we're going to tighten up that season and reduce the number of hours that they work.
Are they, do these guys go through the academy and have the ability to arrest and all that sort of stuff?
They've been grandfathered through the certification system. At one time, you did not need a certification to become a special police officer. That changed in the mid-'80s, and we probably haven't hired a special police officer here in Danbury since the mid-'90s. They're being phased out over time, just because on a part-time basis, somebody couldn't afford to go to a 22-week away academy and then go through 13 weeks of field training. When they first introduced the certification program, they allowed to do that in a nighttime basis over a period of about 4 years. That option no longer exists, and so practically speaking, we won't be employing any more special police officers just because they can't obtain the necessary state certifications.
All right, that was the first question. Thank you. Second, if I may follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Again to Chief. Top line on 124 motor fuel. Amended 2008-9, 270, proposed for next year 185. Again, it's a nice drop, and I appreciate that. Is that a result of the price of fuel going down, or are you estimating less travel? Or
that's a result of the price of fuel going down. We locked in as a city significantly lower for the next year for the price of fuel. That resulted when the prices dropped drastically. I never thought after last summer we'd ever see $2 gasoline again, but fortunately we were able to lock in, I believe, like a 170 price or something. It's a very low price.
$1.74,
yeah, that's a great savings.
So yeah.
If I may address that, prices we're down 42% from last year. And, so you'll see that across the board. Of course, it affects the chief most significantly. And this is, we saw that in Public Works, and you'll see that in Chief Harold's as well. But, the fuel, motor fuel, heating fuel, in those areas, you'll see pretty sizable drops.
Thank you, sir.
Chief, the training also, I noticed took a significant drop. Is that because of the amount of police officers we're adding on, or?
No, that's just belt tightening. We're not going to be sending people to out-of-state trainings, and we're going to limit the amount of in-state training. That's just because of the difficult economic times we're in. There's a certain amount of training we've got to do to meet state requirements, and we'll continue to do that. There's some liability-related training that we have to continue to do, but if there's an opportunity to not go to a seminar, not go to a conference or something, we're going to restrict it because of the economic times.
Thank you.
Through the chair, Chief, how about the school crossing guards? How are we doing with that? I think, were we short last time we spoke on this on the last budget, or?
No, I think we'll be okay. We always price the school crossing guards out at, every crossing guard attending, every day of the year, and that's not reality. They miss because of illness or because of other commitments, and so a police officer has to cover that position when a school crossing guard doesn't show up. So there's a little flexibility in that budget.
Okay.
But the 184 is the same amount we budgeted for this year, and I think we'll be okay in that respect.
We try to price out full staff, and at the beginning of the year, we did kind of break out a small increase that they had promised the previous year. And I think correct me if I'm wrong on this, Chief, but I think we gave an increase in September and then again in January. It was a minor increase, but nevertheless, it was really kind of a token of the appreciation because they hadn't had an increase in at least 3 years, I think. Right.
John, do you have anything?
Yes, that 5715 equipment other. The department proposed a budget of 18,650 and the mayor gave them 5,000. Chief, could you explain to me, it says additional cop units for patrol vehicles?
The ICAP units are in-car video camera systems, and there's still a couple vehicles we need to outfit, and we're not going to be able to do that because the amount has been reduced.
Is that going to jeopardize any program in that?
No, we're going to seek grant funding or just postpone the purchase for a year, but all of our marked vehicles have that system in it. It's a couple supervisors that we want to add them to, but all of our vehicles have the video taking system.
And you anticipate some grants or something coming through?
Yes, the money seems to be pouring out of Washington. Some is a pass-through directly to the municipality, others is competitive. And for instance, there's a Justice Assistance Grant. Normally we get about $25,000. This year we're notified we're getting $140,000. So that's where we're going to make up those shortfalls.
Thank you,
Through you, Chief. At one of the ad-hocs during the course of the year, I know we talked about communication equipment.
Yes.
Where do we stand on that? I don't see anything budgeted prepared for that. Are we moving ahead with? You had talked about moving to a more modern system.
Yes, and the consultant has completed their study. We've applied for stimulus funding, and that's going to be a $10 to $12 million project. That's just something the city budget won't be able to handle right now. It's on a list of shovel-ready stimulus projects that the mayor submitted to the state of Connecticut. So hopefully something will come about for that opportunity.
Is that communication, is that when we're going to combine for the police and fire at the police department? Is that what we're...
That's more related to when we civilianize the dispatch operations. Again, we're applying for a federal grant. It's a competitive federal grant. There's funding for up to 2 years. We're asking for funding for 2 years. We're competing with law enforcement agencies across the country, so I don't know what our chances are, but we're going to give it our best shot.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, Ben.
Through the chair, I don't know either the chief or maybe David can answer this. The leased equipment, now that went down. Is that because you're purchasing the 10 new vehicles? Is that what you're doing? You're substituting?
this year, I think we put in 6 or 7 vehicles in that number. In lease equipment.
Leased equipment.
I'm sorry. Yeah, leases are going, some leases are expiring on this. There are other things besides equipment in that lease. There could be some computer type of equipment that's more specific to public safety, not necessarily the hardware related stuff.
Was that a lease to own type of arrangement?
Yeah.
Or lease to an out, lease over?
Yeah, you buy for $1 at the end.
That's what those leases
All that,
are.
right.
And again, to the chair, regarding those automotive equipment, when you replace those vehicles, are you replacing, are you reassigning those vehicles, or those vehicles are just being scrapped?
Well, now, if they'll end up being evaluated by Antonio, and if they're usable for, for the chief's force, he'll recycle them over there for his special services area if they're good enough. They've been put through the mill pretty good by that point. If they're sent over to Antonio, and then he'll, probably use them for our carpool. And if they're not good enough to be used there, then they would be, probably scrapped for parts or sold at auction.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for police? All right, next, fire department.
Excuse me, just before, are we doing animal control at this meeting, or?
Oh, yeah, no, can we jump to animal control so we can take care of
So we can get out of
Chief
here.
David? So he's got a lot to do. And if we can jump to 215 and 220. Okay. I'm going to just say let's start at 216. Not a lot of changes in animal control. It did go up slightly. I'm going to refer you to see the detail though on 220. Okay. 220 is where you're going to see the detail. Okay. One notable thing, again, you have a new item in there called contribution grants, and this is from DAWS, okay, the animal welfare group. That used to be in the grant area, that is now showing up into the animal control area, the 39 Okay. Another item that you see in here is under leased equipment. This year, recently, they did get a new vehicle over there that they leased. And Chief, if you want to kind of expand upon that and how you were able to utilize the existing cab, or kind of go ahead and expand on that.
It was just we were able to recycle the box for the back of the truck that's on the existing animal control truck. So that reduced the cost. It was like a $10,000 special item. That reduced the cost for the box. So we went ahead and purchased it this year. Well, there's still money in the budget, but then we were able to reduce the request for the 2009-2010 period.
Now, the kind of a morbid thing is that the cost for getting rid of the animals has gone up significantly because of some of the state requirements on that. That was kind of the driving, or one of the other driving factors in this.
Where is that?
That, well, professional services, it's in professional services. That's where you're going to see that go up to 15,000. All right. Last year we were at 9. The budget was close to 12. We bumped that up to 15. And that was a new requirement, and it's more of a health thing, Chief. Is that what you're
Yes.
And the piece, what ends up happening is, just to refresh your minds a little bit, We calculate the total cost for the animal control, which is gonna be $258. Okay, and then we take out any of the other revenues that we may get, such as some of the town clerk fees and miscellaneous income that we might see. And then we end up with the net amount, which is the city contribution. And that's what you see up in the general fund, at $249,361. Okay? Any questions on animal control?
I have a question to the, I have a question to the chair on salaries. How many staff members make up the animal control?
You have 3 people here, right?
That's correct. 4 full-time animal control officers and a clerk office manager.
What are the titles, like chief animal control?
ACO, animal control officer.
Any other questions on animal control?
Just that one was showing that the glaring differences. I think it was this equipment other. No, wait a minute. Yeah. 5715, equipment other. Department requested,
3,100. Yeah, they're looking for a new freezer. Okay. But we're increasing another line, so hopefully we don't have as much of a need for that freezer.
Oh, okay.
but that's only
There's a need. Enough said.
That's a nice way to put it.
Okay, next. This is a public program. 128. Thank you, Chief.
Well, thank you very much.
Great job in the police station.
Thank you. Appreciate you all attending.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. We got the fire chief on the hot seat.
There's a suspicious briefcase by this door. Anybody know what it is? It's ticking. I'm wondering.
Maybe no one starts to smoke.
Then that's the fire chief's. Okay.
Well, I think the police chief just left it. That's why I'm wondering.
Okay.
We'll see if he realizes it and comes back for it.
Yeah, we'll see.
The bottom line is, and I'm going to give you the overview, and then of course the fire chief will address some of the specifics here. Overall, the budget is smaller by $300,000. All right, and the fire chief's head count is on average about 4 people less. He runs about 4 people short at the time. He's got people coming and going, but on average, and we've done a historical analysis on that. He usually runs about 4 people, short. And so, the chief and I had a discussion about it, and he's comfortable, just not funding that portion of it. Doesn't need to fund all the positions. And if it, quite frankly, on average, that's what he's running short. Oftentimes, he's running more. He has 6 vacancies. How many vacancies do you have now?
Right now, we just have the 4.
Okay.
It won't be for long.
Won't be
I'm
right.
certain of that.
He's expecting a couple more. So, a lot of what you see, that $300,000 in large part is due to those 4 vacancies. Now, there's some things that are being shifted around in here, as you will see. Some money's being moved up, dollars added here and there, resources are being reallocated, but, nothing too extreme either way on this. Equipment is down from his budget by $30,000. If you look at the public safety equipment from 80 of this year's budget down to 50. He asked for 70. We asked if he could do with 50. And we looked at some things, and the chief feels comfortable that he can defer any of those purchases that he was planning to make. Or he, quite frankly, what happens from the time that you've made, put your budget together and the time, during this time frame, sometimes these purchases are being, in the process of being made. And so we're able to say, all right, I've already purchased those radios. So I don't need to necessarily have that in my budget next year. So we kind of tighten that up a little bit. And I'll tell them, all right, you don't need to have as much budget for next year. I'll let you buy some this year. And so we kind of tighten that up a little bit. But do you have any specific questions in here? Oh, here's another thing. The medical supplies account has a big goose egg there. The reason being, those are for his paramedics, and those will be funded. That's to resupply his paramedics and all that, and that's going to be funded through the ambulance fund. Okay. We talked to Matt, and we're going to purchase that through whatever the lowest cost provider is. But basically, that's what that fund does. So that's their ambulance supplies, quite frankly. So that's where we're going to purchase it. Any specific questions in here?
Curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
On the medical supplies, I remember somewhere in the past where you bring patients in and they need a cervical collar or they need various medical equipment, and the hospital would replace those and bill the insurance company. So there was no cost to the city at all.
Yeah,
Has
it's
that
great when
changed?
it works. It just doesn't always work that way, and I'm going to allow the chief to expand upon that because we've had numerous discussions with Matt Kasavecchia on that, but I think it's worthy of expanding that.
Actually, some of that still goes on, but on a much different basis than what you're referring to in the past. State law and some issues with public entities versus private providers changed a lot of that, and it used to be that we would use an IV bag or a particular piece of equipment and then just basically grab it off the ambulance. However, because of billing issues and some issues with accountability as a result of the state law, a lot of those things have changed, so it doesn't work nearly that way anymore. Certain pieces of equipment, and such as like the collars, we have to provide on our own, and we do provide and pay for those, and they get used up, get expended, and sometimes we have to buy new ones. We just can't replace them off the ambulance as readily in as many cases as we used to be able to. There are still some issues where we can, or some situations where we can exchange equipment from the private entity that is the hospital. But the ambulance itself, of course, we own the ambulances at the city, but the equipment and such that's on there is bought privately through the hospital, through their provider, so it's not quite as seamless as it used to be.
We do try to make efforts to exchange that, but oftentimes in the moment, there's a higher priority. And that, quite frankly, isn't, is kind of, we don't really worry about that stuff. And that's a bottom line.
Thank you.
Okay. Any,
Just one, Mr. Chairman, that 5502, maintain building structures, to cut there of 20,000?
Well, in large part, and I'm going to, Jeff, we just had this conversation, and I'm going to let you expand on that because that's a good one for you to talk about.
Yeah, 5502, everybody. A couple things I want to point out. We have 5 career stations, and I have 6 volunteer stations. The volunteer stations, of course, are generally older, other than Engine 7. Engine 5 and Squad 6 are turn of the last century or earlier, and they're older buildings, and they have been an issue over the last several years. Right now, generally, they're in fairly decent shape. We've replaced roofs, done some window seals, and some other such energy savings. The problem is that we can only go so far, and we've really reached the maximum that we can put into those buildings justifiably. I mean, there's no insulation, as John knows. There's no insulation over there, and you know the heat. It's very difficult. But there's nothing else we need to do structurally right now. They're as secure as we can make them. We're not anticipating any large expenditures on the maintenance of those buildings at all. The career stations right now, we've got the brand new Engine 26. Engine 24, headquarters, and Engine 25 have all recently had new roofs, for example, or Engine 25, of course, has a whole new facility along with 26. So generally, right now, we have no significant outstanding expenditures expected on the maintenance of those buildings. So just the way it happened to fall, we have a bad year, which is okay because we have fewer expected expenditures on there. Now, that's not to say that there aren't things I would like to do. I'd love to be able to get a grant or get somebody to replace all the windows, for example, at some of these places, to put energy efficient windows in. It was not something that I was planning on funding generally, so we will still be doing some work on those buildings, but nothing we have to do out of this budget line. This budget line is, I'm pretty confident, where we foresee things right now, sufficient to what we're expecting.
And just to expand upon the chiefs, if I may, it kind of goes into what I was mentioning earlier. You'll have before you in a couple weeks something in regard to paving, and this is where that line would fall under. It is something that was originally in the budget, and it's a high cost item. And Chief, if you want to expand on that, or
I can mention that directly.
Why don't you mention that?
One of the things that was in my capital improvement budget as a high priority, urgent need for next year.
But it would have hit under this line.
It would have hit under this line. We were going to need to repave Engine 24. Engine 24 is Eagle Road. It's a firehouse that was built and donated by Seymour Powers back in the early 70s when they built Commerce Park out there. It's been a great firehouse. The situation is such that the ramp to the fire station and the parking lot next to it have totally failed. And we've been working to try to replace them for the last several years. And quite frankly, I had approached a private contractor and over the last year or so to come in and have him give me an estimate on what it would cost to do the job correctly if I had to go and buy it on the market. And it was about $32,000 was the suggested price it was going to be. Since that time, within the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if I should mention specifics here, but you'll find it'll be put out to you. The contractor has made an offer to come back and to offer, if we can provide the material, he would do the labor for free, which is going to save the city significant monies, 50% of the cost, and we're looking to buy the materials for that effort through the city bid list. So now we're going to be able to move that off of that capital and off of next year's working budget into this year. It's going to be done donated labor, which is a huge savings to the city, a wonderful opportunity to have this job done, and a very generous offer by the private contractor. So that's the type of thing we're still looking for, and this has been something very nice that we're hoping is going to continue to happen with the community effort that people are putting out to the city.
Just one question here. The structure of the 24s, we have some big problems there. Has that been corrected in this budget or?
No. We have some very significant problems with the building. However, it's significant only in that there's a whole bunch of little things. We did have appearance that the building, as you look at the building, we were afraid that side B, which is the side to the left from the front of the building, was collapsing, was falling down. We had an engineering study done last year at a very insignificant cost, because once again, Dupart stepped up, Public Buildings came over, dug out the footing and the foundation for us. We brought the engineer in, the engineer outside came in, looked at the building, said, no, the wall's not falling, no, we don't have to redo this footing and all this stuff. But there's a whole bunch of little things. The total value of the little things is about $115,000. But none of them are anything that's going to take the building A, out of service, or something that we can't nitpick along, spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 at a time to kind of fix some of these things. So the building itself is secure. I've done what needs to be done. We've fixed the crack. The wall has been repaired. The hole has been closed up. The doors have been repaired. So the building is a secure facility again. The only thing, quite frankly, that I'm looking over there is a capital expenditure, adding backup power to it. I want to try to get a generator in there. Once again, that's in my budget for this year. Well, it was in my budget for this year. But that is the only thing over there that's a significant cost in a single item. Everything else is lots of little numbers.
Mr. Esposito, got to my question.
Dr. Murphy? Okay.
Just one more, John?
Yeah, sure, Jim.
That item, 5851, if someone's compliment, that item remains the same. And I just questioned the chief, I'm assuming that the budgets came in and were out of the store, but are we going to have to listen to them, or are they satisfied, or what?
I don't know that they've. By the way, that number you see there, everybody, 5851 contribution to other town funds, that is the contribution from the city to the volunteer association, and split up among the 12 volunteer companies to make sure everybody's clear on that. And that number has not changed for I believe 8 or 9 years. I did suggest to the finance director and the mayor that if they were cutting across the board, that might be something they looked at. But after consideration of the fact that it hadn't been boosted in 8 or 9 years, it really felt that we would leave it the same as it is, as last year. That's why that number is where it is. And that little $2,000 difference a couple of years ago, I think it went from 423 or something. That was the only increase, and that was not overall, so that was such a little amount. But it hasn't really changed in almost 9 years. So I don't anticipate we'll hear anything from them, seeing as it didn't get cut. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the chief. When you look at that figure, the 425, 423, whatever it is, how was that derived at, chief, over a period of time? Do you take an overall study of all of the volunteer responses and so on?
You're going to make me look foolish here, but I can honestly tell you, I have no idea. I really don't. That number was there before I was here. The number gets distributed amongst the companies through the volunteer council. The numbers are not the same. Every company doesn't get like $32,600. Each company gets their own allocation. And I honestly do not know where that comes from. It was something done beyond the department's level, and it's historical. I really can't answer you, Fred. I'm sorry.
Chief, why don't you talk about what it's for?
Well, I can talk about what it's for. Remember, the volunteer companies, the 12 volunteer companies in town provide a very vital and needed service to us, and they do it basically for free. And when I say for free, obviously you're looking at a $425,000 donation. What you're getting there are 12 volunteer companies, many with multiple apparatus, being able to provide a huge service that is not marked by that number. That number does not indicate the value you're getting. The value you're getting would be a far higher number. The volunteers operate brush trucks, tanker trucks. None of the career trucks are those same capacities. We do not have a brush truck. We do not have tanker capacity. The volunteers provide those services. The volunteers provide 2 squad units, emergency lighting, that are used by the police for accident investigation, as well as providing power and energy and air for the fire department. The volunteers are providing a huge service to the city, so that number is, quite frankly, a far lower number. What the volunteers do with that money, they basically pay their bills. They pay their heat. They pay their electricity. They pay some equipment replacement charges. They also, of course, everybody knows they run everything from flower sales to bake sales to fund their operations. But that number is basically, consider it seed money for a huge crop. And what you reap from that seed money is incalculable. That's the best way I can put it.
Just one question, Chief. But these volunteer outfits, they don't all get the same amount.
No.
Can you explain the difference?
I can't explain the difference of how those amounts are arrived at, because I honestly don't know. That's what I mentioned.
But the reason is one owns their own facility.
Right. The companies are very different. The city-owned companies, the 6 companies that the city owns the buildings, there's a certain amount of value that goes with there that they get by the fact that we maintain and operate their building. For example, Worcester, Jefferson Avenue, Locust Avenue, White Street, those are the city companies, and we own and maintain their buildings. So they would get the smaller amount of that 425. The outside companies, Mill Plain, Myrie Brook, Germantown, Beaver Brook, for example, they have other expenses. They own their own buildings, so they have a much higher cost value, or cost charged back to the departments.
Yeah, I think also included in there is the fireworks, Lake Candlewood. which is around 25,000. Once before I did a survey on this, Jeff, maybe you, ISO sets the fire rating for the entire city of Danbury. We have like 18,000 housing units in the city of Danbury, which equates to about $2.5 million in savings to all the residents because of the water carrying capacity of the volunteer trucks. ISO, a good percentage of the rating system, Jeff, is based on how much water you can deliver to a fire. So you get, everybody enjoys in the savings. You're making a $400,000 investment and getting back around $2.5 million.
Plus what you save on your homeowners as well.
Well,
a town class 9, I mean, every individual, a town class 9 versus a town class 4, which is what we are.
Yeah, we're 4/9.
Yeah, it's a tremendous difference in pricing to purchase homeowners.
surrounding communities, I think, around 7.
Some of them, they vary, some of them are much even higher.
The
than that.
rates are much higher.
Yeah, there is a savings to be gained. It's kind of indefinite, but there is a savings and a cost benefit to the city.
Just one final note. The chief had mentioned his collaborative efforts with public works, more specifically engineering and construction services and highway. You see a lot of that going on. I mean, we heard about it in public works when we had that Ad-Hoc. But you don't hear a lot about it when you deal with other departments like the fire department and some of these other departments. But it really, what Antonio has done over there is, it pays back manifold. And what the chief is talking about, in the past we would have had to hire consultants to do a lot of that work. Now we make a small investment in a consultant, and then we do a lot of the legwork. We do all this other stuff in-house instead of paying the full boatload on a consultant, saving a lot of money. So now we've evaluated it, and we'll pay for it over time and supplementing it probably across several different budget codes. And we'll do it when we can, with that in-house talent that we have. And if we don't have it, we'll have to hire out. But we have a lot of in-house talent. So, and we use all of it.
Through the chair to Chief Harrell. You mentioned here one of the objectives is to improve the fire training station on Plumtree. Is there a lot of costs in this budget in order to achieve that goal?
No, there's not a lot of costs necessarily. Part of that, as you know, I've applied to the State Fire Commission to get this designated as a regional school, which will, on the other end of that designation, eventually make access to other funds, state and federal, to help improve that. So a lot of what we're talking about there is simply some simple additions. We need to improve things like the fencing. We got to get some tar or some paving in, some things like that, some of which we can do through the city, some of which we can do at very low cost. I've also been working with a couple of local contractors and vendors to help us build some props over there that we can use to improve our ability to use the school for training, and much again that's being done either on donations or extremely low cost. I am always in pursuit of donations and or grant funding, so that's still ongoing, of course, and some of that will be directed to the fire school. One of the few things that's out there right now with the AFG grant that's just gotten posted is that anything to do with a regionalization or regional use is really being looked favorably by the federals looking at the grant. So that's the type of thing we're talking about, but some of that will be driven by that money. If this budget was incredibly flush, you turn around and give me another $2 million tonight, I will build a classroom facility and a tower at that fire school. You'll probably see it by September, and I appreciate the offer.
Make that motion.
But that is how we're hoping to make some of those improvements. Some of the improvements are very little. And here's an example. Over the last 6 months, we've been working on replacing the lighting that's there. We have a single street lamp that's an old type street lamp. We've now got 2 new poles laid in, donations through AT&T. They gave us the poles, they gave us the crew, they came over, they set the poles for me. In site, I have several E1s on my staff at the fire department. They actually designed and developed and laid in a trench with the help of Duke Hart, again, at the Public Works. They dug a trench, and we have the cabling or the conduit in for cables. We're going to improve the lighting to be able to do night drills over there, which is usually used by the volunteers because they work during the day, they come over at night. So we're going to have lighting to make it a usable facility at night. Right now it isn't suitable for nighttime drills. But that's being done in-house at extremely low cost, and all we have left to do now is buy the lighting itself, the light heads. And that'll be a couple of grand, and we'll have all new lighting over there and have a much better facility because of it. But once again, it's because we're doing these things as we go. I'm looking for donations. AT&T was kind enough to give us those donations. So, which you approved as a common council back in, I think, November, October. So we are making these types of, little improvements as we go along. And I've got a list of them.
Just one more thing, Mr. Chairman. Chief, is there any money or plans in your budget for property acquisition?
No. This goes back once again to some of the things we talked about with the consolidation with the volunteers. It would be my best effort I would make my best efforts to consolidate the volunteers by selling some of these properties that are not particularly efficient for use for fire trucks. One of my companies just getting ready to buy a new fire truck, and they have to buy a fire truck that fits in the building. And this has been the same thing. And you can't be buying fire trucks like that. It reduces your capability, reduces your serviceability, and it reduces your ability to fill your mission. But we have to, because the firehouses are small, the wooden floors don't hold heavy fire trucks. So that's the kind of buying we're in. If we could sell those, as John is alluding to, we have a committee. Councilman Biscani and a number of other folks here have sat in on meetings. We're trying to find property, to buy property that we can put 3 or 4 or even 5 of these engine companies, the volunteers, in a single home. It'll do a lot of things for us. It'll save money on buildings. It'll make recruitment for volunteers easier. It will allow the volunteers to work together, to form a cohesive unit, to allow the volunteers to get out more frequently, which is crucial to a volunteer company, because if the people that are members aren't doing something, they lose interest and they go away. And we can't let that continue. And by putting them into a joint firehouse, it will improve all those chances of all those things going away and letting the volunteers be more productive and more valuable yet to the city. So we are looking for property. No, there is no money in my budget for that. Anytime we want to form a capital budget and start donating money to that, you have the authority and the power to do that. So I would look forward and welcome that effort.
Well, what I was talking about, Chief, was the property acquisition adjoining the pay department on New Street.
And that has been, and that is now...
There's some money, wasn't there money appropriate for that?
There was some money made available with the effort through the mayor, and I was told that what had happened with AT&T, that property right next to the fire seal, Ryder Dairy, for those of you who are old-time Danbury folks, that property has got some contaminants in it. It's going to cost between somewhere around $500,000 to $600,000 to clean it up. And we made them an offer to buy the property for $1, and we would do the cleanup. AT&T has decided they want to sell the property after the cleanup. As of right now, that's their goal. They want to clean up, sell it unencumbered, which means that we wouldn't be able to pay market value for the property and then do that. So as of right now, that property is not available to us. They haven't sold it yet. I'm not sure what's going on. They haven't done the work yet. To me, it's always a possibility until I see a new sign. We'll build a suit on it. So, and I would hope to use that property. Here's my commercial. Interrupt us.
Nice touch, Chief.
Yep. So at this point, we don't have any acquisition available for that property. No way to acquire that property. I'm sorry. I wanted Van Houtens too. We didn't get that either.
Okay, so no other questions for the chief, and I'll just move on.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, building department, page 132. Alright, the building department is on par with last year. We're on page 132. You'll see it. It's about $15,000 higher than the 630.08 actual. About $2,000 lower than the amended budget for this year. We're keeping it basically flat, a little bit less than what they proposed. The areas that were adjusted were the overtime, part-time. And all departments were pretty much adjusted in overtime, in several cases, part-time. In most cases, conferences and training were also knocked down. And office supplies were also knocked down. And equipment we're keeping at a minimum. And that's where the adjustments were made in that department. Any questions in the building?
Ready? I'm gonna make this simple. We looked at the budget, and I thought David was extreme with it, but I talked to the mayor recently, and he said that, you know, if you run out, he says, naturally, we'll fund it. Our overtime, just so you understand, our overtime works a little different than the other departments. The overtime that we get for different contractors or building owners, what happens is they contract because they need something done nights, weekends, and what they do is they write a letter, agree to pay our price, and David has broken it down to the point where everything is included. But what happens is, as the money is paid back, we take it out of our overtime account, we pay our guys, and then when it's requested overtime, that money was going back in the general fund. Now what's happening is the money goes there, we really don't touch it, but the overtime that's left over is really emergencies, and you have to remember, we have no control over that. We respond fires, gas leaks, odors, water breaks, you name it, we're out there. And that, as I mentioned before, if it happens, we're going to go ahead and go through the money. And if it's a good year and it doesn't happen, we're happy. There's nobody that really, you know, is eager to respond because we're on 24/7. Bottom line, if we run out, the only reason I stopped tonight is to tell you that we're going to try to work with the budget and as best we can, but if we run out, then, you know, Dave will have to come up with the money. We don't see it as, you know, it's going to be overtime. One thing that I wanted to mention is the contract for the boots. We don't have enough for coming year, but I'm sure you'll come up with that. And as far as the part-timers, the only thing that should be mentioned, we are still paying the former structural engineer for the engineering department, who works for us part-time, for all the retaining wall reviews. That's really, you know, basically as they come in, that's what we're funding. And if our girl goes on vacation, we've won, our department has over years won from the secretary and 3 clerks down to 1 clerk. So when she goes on vacation, I don't have anybody. So as long as we're covered, we're happy. It's just that there isn't too many people covered anymore down there. So we're going to try to do the best we can to live with it. And sorry to take up your time, but I'm out of here. Okay?
Thanks very much.
Take care of it.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, what happened to that expenditures in '09, that figure down there? 387, 280? The difference between the figures all around it? Something happened that year that they didn't use the fund?
Oh, at 228?
Yes.
Well, the years, you know, let's see what's going on there. Aside from the year is only partially over on that, it looks a little bit, you can see that a lot of the accounts he hasn't used yet, that he has budgeted for, like the equipment, and that's in part because of the freeze that we have. The salary line, which is his primary line, is right on par, but the other lines that he has budgets for, you know, we're basically on a spending freeze, so he's not utilizing a lot of that, and that's why you see that kind of slow down. So basically, through 7 months of the year, that is not really 7/12 because of that spending freeze. To answer your question.
Yes, thank you.
To the chair, you mentioned boots. I was just, because wasn't there something about boots in another department, and you said if they got the money from, worked with the fire department, they could get in cheaper.
If you, right.
Well, I just,
We'll
is
find
that
the money.
same?
We'll find the
Are
money.
those the same boots?
No.
Oh, okay.
We'll find the money. No problem. Moving on. They're nice boots, you know, for their use. They're not like the waders that the sewer department would use, which is equivalent to what the fire department would use. I guess.
More construction type boots.
Yes. Yes. You know, they're not up to the waist in water. Okay. 135. Civil prep. The new addition here is the War Memorial, which again, last year was in the grants area. And for just, I just want to make sure we're all, last year they got 75, this year they're getting 50. It was in the grants, it's now showing up under civil prep. And for the purposes that we use the War Memorial as our staging area and as our kind of our temporary housing area during times of emergencies that we might. As I'm not sure if Paul mentioned it, or he probably will mention, the communication services line, that is for the reverse 911. I think, like many of the contracts, we're on a continuous review of our existing contracts and trying to negotiate down. And Paul has successfully negotiated that down, saving us some money on that. That's part of our review process, so that number will come in a little bit lower. But it's pretty, nothing exciting in that. Any questions on this one? Next, sewer protection. It's flat. I cut out the fat. It wasn't being used. If it wasn't being used last year, or probably the year before, I cut it out. That was pretty much rule of thumb. It ain't being used, it's gone. They didn't need it. Okay. The unit, page 130, 139, 130. Oh, I'm sorry. Unit is less one person now. At one time, we had a position called the Assistant ZEO, Zoning Enforcement Officer, that was never filled. And obviously, this is not the time to be filling positions. They found that they can live without that position at this time, and so it's going to be eliminated. And so that's where much of the savings is coming from. Some other changes are happening there that you'll see. Some drops in overtime, some other drops that are occurring, some shuffling that's happening, some budget. There was some budgetary shifts that occurred earlier to pay for something in, I think, the other departments. Any questions on the unit? That's where one of those 14 positions that we talked about are coming from.
The chair of David.
Yeah.
I'm looking at an actual 2007, 2008, 226.
Yeah.
And a proposal of 259 for the I don't, I'm missing something.
Yeah, there was,
It's actually increasing by close to 30,000.
What happened there was the fire, the deputy fire marshal wasn't being charged there. He was actually being charged in the fire department. That's going to be
So you're shifting somebody from
fire department.
over
Yeah,
to you.
and that's part of the $300,000. He actually should have been charged in here. And that's what's going to be happening next year. And that's why you're not really, even though he's being reduced one person, you're not seeing it, the difference in the amended budget to the proposed budget. That's what's going on there. You know, to make a short story long. Okay. I got that right, Sean. Okay.
Did you just, I want to ask this question, I'm not sure if you just answered it, but the deputy fire marshal,
Yeah.
why isn't he listed under fire?
Well,
Why is he listed under the unit?
basically, there's a rotating deputy fire marshal that fills that position. And
But didn't,
you know, I mean this in all kindness. The unit is made up of a specialized team of misfits.
Misfits?
You know, a specialized team of not misfits, but they get the experts there. That's terrible. You know what I mean. They're experts that they shift them around. Same with like the building inspector. They're dedicated. When they need that task force with that expertise, that's who goes. Quite frankly, right? I got that. And that's so. In the past, without having a specific person, it really wasn't charged, even though the budget was kind of there. So now we're going to say, all right, we're just going to allocate a salary over there, and we'll just do a journal entry to move it. And instead of assigning a specific person, we're going to just journalize it.
It's a full-time equivalent.
Full-time equivalent, yes.
And I believe when the unit was created, the deputy fire marshal, as part of the agreement, to kind of be pulled over from the deputy fire marshal's normal day-to-day responsibilities and be able to partner with the unit, an agreement was made, okay, to help with that, the unit will cover the salary for that deputy fire marshal at that time. So it's kind of been part of the salary figure in the budget line item for the past few years.
Time out.
Thank you.
7 seconds.
But that way they can truly use the specialized whoever has that expertise, they can send on that particular task. It's the best use of the resources.
Yes.
Through the chair, what exactly does the public service rep do in terms of the overall function?
311. 311.
It's a 311 yeah.
It's a 311 operator.
Okay. So he just sits there at the desk?
He answers the phone all day long.
He answers the phone, he also assists the department in reporting, inputting new calls that we get in to the office directly, as well as maintaining the records that we have when we go out to do inspections and re-inspections.
And that's about 7,000 calls last year. Yeah, and follow up and all that.
Through the chair. Now, in the past, we had a police officer assigned to the unit. Is that no longer in here?
We still have the police officer with the unit, however, his salary comes out of the police department budget.
Yeah, it's not a permanent thing, it's more on basically a non. It's not as permanent as what you would see here, so I think, these are kind of your core players, and so we haven't allocated that cost over to there because it's not a frequent occurrence.
No, we don't have the officer every day. We probably have the officer on average about 2 times a week, or because he works different shifts throughout the week, our department has the advantage as well to assign him certain calls or tasks in the evenings when he's working third shift or second shift, which is good to our benefit.
But they don't work the entire shift, they work on a particular call that you
That's
feel
correct.
it might be
Yes.
necessary. So it's really
As
performing
needed.
a police function rather than as a
And a straight
offshoot
lead
of
on our
another
review
unit.
for the evening, that's right.
Was that a change? I thought in the past, an officer was assigned to it, and the
I
cost
don't
was.
remember an officer being assigned to it.
There was an officer, other, or
Mr. Chairman, it's a matter of semantics. The assignment is the same officer all the time. It's Officer Utter, the graffiti specialist, if you will. He spends, as Sean mentioned, probably 2-3 days a week working directly with the unit. The other times he's assigned to his regular shift. Not a change in practice, been the same way since the first day that we assigned him over there. And the idea was to coordinate his graffiti efforts with what Sean and the rest of the team were doing in that particular department. So they're all communicating together so they can target specific areas.
Okay, no other questions for the unit, then let's move on to health, housing, and welfare, 166. Thank you. Okay, this may appear to have gone up quite a bit, and Scott, I'm shocked that you got so much money, but the reality is that we threw a few extra lines in there. That's new to Scott's department, and these were traditionally in the grants area. Okay, and you know, the first one is the CIFC, which is the Connecticut Institute for Communities, and that's for $126,000. And the next one is the Danbury Youth Services for $122,000, and the third one is Women's Center for $63,000. And those collectively make up about $300,000. And when you remove that, he's actually about on par with last year, maybe slightly less. All right. Those functions are clearly under the health, housing, and welfare area, and as we mentioned in other areas that have been given new line items such as this, it's the most appropriate area to have these services because they do perform, of course, these areas. They're just kind of outsourcing. There's not a whole lot of changes in his line items here, folks. I mean, it's pretty straightforward from last year. And, nothing too exciting on this. Any questions on
Jack?
health and
Yeah, through you, David.
Yeah.
The numbers that are going with the grants, that we assume this, do you know what last year's numbers were?
I do.
I know we made cuts with some of the others.
Connecticut Institute for Communities, last year was 112. And I know there's a question at some point, why did it go up to 126? And the reason for that is because we're going to be performing the additional service this year, and that is to assist agencies, other agencies that are not within the city budget, in how to apply through United Way, how to organize their own agencies, and basically assist them in any possible way. You know, how to reach out for other funding sources, not just the United Way, but other funding sources. They're going to be asked to do that function. So they're not, agencies that are not funded through the city process, they're not just going to simply be cut off. And so this, CIFC is going to help us in that regard. So it's in addition to what they were asked to do in the past. So that's an additional function.
Do you have anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there are two.
Why,
Services. 135, 824. And was given $70,040. They were cut 10%.
And through the chair, maybe it's directed at the mayor. Since the grants are now in each individual's department, is it the responsibility of that department head to oversee that line item?
Yes, they'll administrate it on a day-to-day basis, but each of the grant agencies are still required to provide audited statements each year. They're still required to provide all the reporting that they do. And the CIC grant, they also fund Harambee. Remember, we moved to Harambee and we got to help bring some stability to that organization. So, Harambee got some, Jim Malone's doing all of Harambee's books now as well. And all that reporting still has to flow up through to David. So there's a financial side that Dave is responsible for, but the day-to-day management side would be, in this case, Scott's department or whatever department that they're looking at.
So he'll be overseeing, make sure they comply with the standards established by the city.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and through the chair to the floor of the mayor, David, we can assume that these former grant agencies are now restricted to providing services for Danbury residents.
Absolutely. In fact, there's one of the things that we can discuss a little bit later on is that well, yes, the answer to your short question is yes, but I have some other ideas about that. Maybe you could flesh it out outline. Thanks. Not sure about these groups, but in general.
Other questions? Yes.
Through the chair on line item 5855, contributions grant CIFC, is this the only monies that we're giving to this organization, or are they also applying through the Danbury Grants Agency, the city of, so is it two sorts of funding?
Just this councilwoman, they're not eligible to apply to the United Way.
They are?
No, they're not.
Okay.
Their job is to be the catch-all for those agencies that might get less or might get anything. Mr. Malloy has a CPA, an attorney, and himself to conduct, as David mentioned, grant writing, an assessment of their grant agency to see what they can do better. And he's going to try to really facilitate getting groups to merge together so we don't have duplications of services and take us out of a loop a little bit. Part of his mission will be to get folks all talking on the same page. So their services will be as a catch-all for those that don't get funded through the grant agency process. So he can't apply for you.
Okay. And the same for youth services. They also cannot apply for the city grant agency.
That's right. Not for our city money, but they are a recipient of United Way money on the money that they raise on the other side of the ledger. The United Way has two pools of money. They have the money that they raise.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. I got it. Okay.
This one.
Through the chair, I wonder, on the Women's Center, I think they've got 70,000, and I know first of all, I know they're a very worthwhile organization, and they're very program-oriented, and I was wondering, because of the 63,000, I think it is, what program this will go to, or is it just general assistance? The Women's Center.
It's general assistance. I mean, it was they submitted the 70,000, but it's how they want to reallocate that 63,000. I think that's to their discretion.
Okay. Unrestricted.
Right. So they'll have to adjust. Any questions? Okay.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, I just want to interject. Scott got hit hard with retirements / they want employees moving to Florida. We will be restructuring the department. So
I know we were discussing early retirement last night. This will be one of those departments that may have a very different look as the year goes on. Of course, report back to the council what our plans are. If there's any requirement for appropriations, I don't think there will be, but you know, I just want to sort of make you aware that this is coming up the flagpole. And probably, how many employees retired?
5.
5 plus
one left.
Plus one left.
We've been in constant conversation.
Yeah, we look at this as an opportunity.
Man of many hats, huh?
I love them. Thank you very much.
I'll chat along, that's all.
No complaints. I'm going along.
We're meeting at
What's for us, but
Thursday to go over tomorrow.
Just, well, how will that impact services?
I put it this way. I've been full staffed, and we've had 2 people out on surgery, vacations, and emergencies. The stopgap we measure short term, we implement every day. The long-term plan, I think, will fully service us the way we need to be right now.
We have one more.
Okay, next. If I may just, Veterans Advisory. We have a new addition to this department. Again, like several of the others that we had mentioned tonight, our contribution grants for veterans was at $23,000. New addition to the department, as I said. Last year they were funded at slightly less than that, $20,600. But that's it's not like they got an increase. Previously, there's a portion of that was funded under the mayor's line. And so we just kind of combined those 2 lines, and I believe that was for a portion of Memorial Day, that every year they would come back to the mayor, and the mayor would end up funding it through his line. So we threw it together and put it under this line. No, basically everything else is pretty much intact. There's not a whole lot of budget here to begin with. You know, Mr. Waldron is a one-meeting show there. So
One man who is also retired.
Is also retired. Yes, he is.
really,
Going to be back with you with some opportunities there to service our veterans and save a few bucks.
Yes.
Chairman, just one question for my own. CAD services veterans of the greater Denver area, and that includes quite a few towns here. Do they contribute at all? Do they kick in at all?
Well, we'd like them to. The short answer is sometimes, but it's not a requirement.
We don't get, Johnny, we don't get a lot for them, to be honest with you. And Pat does it out of the goodness of his heart, because he doesn't want to turn the veteran away. We've approached communities surrounding us probably dozens of times, and they just, for the wealthiest communities, they don't want to give us a break. So, and it's hard, though, to tell somebody who's got on their life, a veteran in front of Pat, to say, you know, go pound sand. It's been tough. We'll continue to outreach to those communities and try to get them to contribute.
Doesn't know any geographical boundaries.
Potentially we could, but they don't want to regionalize because they don't want to do it.
All right. Any questions? Okay, next, Commission on Aging, 172. Okay, we lost, on the Commission on Aging, we are lower than last year. Due to a reduction in the staffing. The coordinator assistant has been vacant for some time, and we decided to that position is no longer necessary. So
Part-time.
and it's been replaced with a part-timer. So you notice a part-time. We did a couple things with that. We cut back on some part-time hours, but we brought those hours back up by basically backfilling this coordinator, full-time coordinator assistant with some part-time hours. So although it may look like we're flat with part-time salaries, we actually added a part-time person. Okay, any questions on this budget? Susan Tamanio has an extremely tight budget. She keeps track of everything if you've ever spoken to her. And she sells everything she can sell, which is great. Yeah.
Through the chair, last night, a member of the public spoke about senior transportation.
Yes.
Has her concerns been addressed in here?
We haven't touched, the short answer is we have not cut transportation. Have we increased it? No, we haven't. She has dealt with, she's aware of the transportation issues. The Housing Authority, has their, does provide transportation. I think I need to kind of look into that a little bit more to see exactly if there's my understanding is they do kind of co-share rides.
They do.
There,
they have a part-time driver that will pick up seniors, but we don't do medical appointments on the senior center.
No, but it's not like they're not permitted. They do give rides. Do they act like a taxi? No, they don't.
We have a small bus that we do a loop on to pick up seniors that want to go to the center.
Right.
The issue I think that was being raised last night was this issue of medical appointments, and frankly, door-to-door service from a door to the hospital and then wait while you're getting a test and then pick up and bring back. It's extremely expensive to operate. I don't know too many communities in Connecticut that are even doing anything like this. Dial-up in Stanford. There might be a program somewhere on the coast, but the money that we do get from the state for senior transportation goes to HART to run the Sweetheart bus. And that was a decision we made years ago to do that. There's some concerns that it takes too long to make an appointment and they're not quick enough, but we even tried giving Red Cross some money last year, if you guys remember that. But they went out of business on us. So it's a tough, it's a big number of the budget to really do it the right way. Provide a service where you call, make an appointment, pick up.
Does that answer your question? All right. Any questions on seniors or the Commission on Aging? And I think we just kind of walked into the elderly transportation here. Again, as I mentioned, unlike everything else that we cut 10%, this was one area that we did not. For that very reason. It's remained intact at 12,000. Okay. Community services, 11, page 177. If we can, let's go to one. Before we do that, let's just look at overall. Let's look at 177. Downtown Council. They're flat funded. With last year at $40,802. They were in grants last year. We're just shifting them over to the new category that we call community services. Okay.
That's what you did last year?
Yeah. Okay. They provide a tremendous amount of support downtown, and it certainly gets your bang for the buck. The United Way, which is on page 179, one of the things that I will add in the adopted budget is on the individual ones, and as you can see on my tabs here as I go through this, I'm always kind of critical of myself here, but I will put down numbers next to each one of these. Economics is we're funding $275,000. Education we're funding $100,000, and health we're funding $125,000. And that brings up to a total of $500,000. We're aware of the fee that you know, they charge, as I mentioned, 3% fee maximum. So we left in about $15,000 there, which means if they don't use it, that can be reallocated. Okay. But, you know, the different categories, economics, education, and health, you know, the committee will review and the different applications and allocate that money accordingly. So it's going to be a new process, and United Way is going to basically train the people on how to do it. I mean, they're a pretty well-oiled machine over there, and that's the kind of I think structure that will serve us well. So, any questions on this?
Through the chair, will the council see a list of those organizations, and how will that fold out? Will it adopt the number here, and then later on during the year we'll get an accounting or approval? I don't know what the process is going to be.
Well, then you'll get a breakdown from United Way as to who the grantees were and what the dollar amount was.
If I may mention, I know we'll probably get the list in sometime in June, but chances are this will go to print before that. So you know, it'll be a handout, supplemental. So.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, do you recall what we gave for grants last year?
It was significantly more. I mean, if you add in the agencies that we're carrying now, we're plus the 515. You're about 800 to 900,000, somewhere in that ballpark. We did about 1.25 last year. You know, and we're proud to do it in good economic times. I think we've, you know, part of this push by everybody here in this room, you know, there's pretty strong agreement on this process, is that we've got to get smarter with the dollars that we invest. And because there aren't going to be as many dollars, not just this year, next year is going to be just as difficult, and the following year is going to be just as difficult. It's going to be a while before things really turn around, and we always lag behind anyway. So I think it's important that the money we do put into these agencies, we get a good pop back to the community. And while I recognize that it's going to be a struggle for some, that's why we have a capacity building agency they can go to get technical advice, to get support, to try to look for alternative ways of funding, or maybe have that tough conversation about, you know, you're really kind of doing the same thing this other group is doing. Maybe you guys need to merge boards and you know, kind of merge your mission together. And that's a conversation that can be had by sort of objective, nonpartisan folks, and that may be some conversations have to have. But it's difficult. And I just want to say for the record, you know, we're one of the only cities in Connecticut that does this. I mean, very few cities in Connecticut donate anything to grant agencies at all, period. So, you know, not Stanford, not Norwalk, you know, not New Britain. When I talk to other mayors and other elected officials here, they can't believe we do this. Not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying, you know, we got to keep things in perspective going forward. And it's going to be difficult, I know that. And nonprofits are being squeezed from all over, but you know, we also have to be very strategic about the money we invest.
It probably costs the city, and I calculated this out, and it's not listed there, but it costs the city probably about $25,000, but we got about $79,000 back in services. That's the volume, 3 to 1.
And it's another way, you know, Mr. Chairman, it's another way for nonprofits to get assistance. You know, where they can't maybe afford an employee, they can apply to get a saved volunteer, and some of those volunteers were placed in our nonprofit partners throughout the city. So it is sort of an in-kind contribution that we're providing to those agencies. And Patty did a remarkable job at managing the program, providing feedback, scoring the participants, interviewing them, placing them. We had a couple of placements that weren't so good, so she moved the volunteer to another location to keep them happy, and she really did a nice job, and I think it's money well spent. And it does represent a cut. Remember, she got a $15,000 grant from the state last year to do this, and I did tell her that, look, this is a one-shot on the state grant. So, you know, but she has agreed to take on the project again this year for a reduced amount.
And the quality of people that we got, all in all, it's pretty solid. I mean, excellent. One one of our IT people. We're still using for
They won't go.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't want them to go.
One engineer.
So, yeah. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, the ambulance fund. Page 210. The tab. Each year, for the last several years, the ambulance fund has been operating a surplus and will do so again this year. It's, you know, switching that over has been a great success. You know, they're doing a great job over there, and their budget, proposed budget for this coming year is, it was basically flat. There are a couple items that I included in there. If we flip to 214, you'll see those in the details. Medical supplies, which I kind of mentioned earlier when Jeff was here. Anything that's related to medical supplies that may be for first responders, for the fire department, and possibly the police or anybody else, that they, you know, any of those kind of things that they need to replenish will be paid for from the ambulance fund. Okay. And if Jeff needs to have some of his guys go to paramedic training, it's going to come from the ambulance fund. All right. Those two items, I discussed this with Matt Kesselbeck. I included within that, and quite frankly, that was a way to help, you know, provide Chief Harold with some additional training money as well. You know, because now he's going to have to provide, you know, they need to maintain their training in paramedics and all this other stuff. So instead of funding that within the general fund, fund it in the ambulance fund where it should be. Same with resupplying and all those other things. Okay. So that's why you see a slight, you know, basically a $20,000 increase from their last year's actuals. Those two items. Okay. Any questions on the ambulance fund? We'll talk about the animal control fund again if you want. That was real exciting.
That was rough.
Well, thank you, everybody.
All right, guys.
Accept the budget submitted by public safety and social services.
All in favor?
Repeat the motion.
Make a motion that we accept the budget submitted by the mayor for health, housing, public safety, and social services.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Motion adjourned.
Oh,
Thank you, John.